So, Ryan, it's December, the month of December, which can only mean one thing. Christmas movies.
Can you hear that? I can. I can hear the festive cheer.
I thought you were going to say sleigh bells then. I was like, I'll edit those in later. I'm not going to edit in festive cheer, though.
Hey.
Yeah.
It's that time of year where there's an abundance of great snacking food.
I think say love for fellow man.
Oh, no. If you've spent a Christmas with the Etheringtons, as you have, you know Christmas is not a time for love and happiness.
Love of fellow man. Yeah,
it's more...
Where's mine?
Why do people keep talking over me, explain the rules of this game? I'm getting really annoyed now. I'm a culprit of that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that notwithstanding, it's December. It's Christmas movie month.
We've got two fantastic Christmas movies coming up.
Yeah.
Jim, opposite me, may disagree with my choice, but I believe...
Yeah, but my pick is so good, it will carry over your pick, so it's still a good pick for the month, if you know what I mean. We're starting off this episode is going to be Die Hard, the classic.
Yeah, baby.
Next month's Ryan's pick, we'll less said about that the better. But
it's Jingle All the Way. I know it's much maligned, I know people hate on it, but Jingle All the Way has grown on me in previous years, and for some reason it's a go-to Christmas movie for me.
Yeah, well, we'll discuss that next week.
Discuss it we shall.
Welcome to Bury Our Bones With, the show that lives, breathes and dies the classic movies you love. We are your hosts, me, Jimmy Murphy, and with me as always, the die-hard to my just die already, Mr. Ryan Etherington. In today's show, we'll be burying our bones with the 1988 Christmas party to end all Christmas parties, Die Hard. So join us as we put on our rubber hobbit's feet, sully Roy Rogers, turn a white vest green and moonlight as the wrong guy in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yippee-ki-yay, motherf***.
Life lessons for me, Matthew McConaughey. Come with me if you want to live. Life lesson number 86. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and have a look, you might just miss it.
So, 1988's Die Hard. A John McTiernan classic. A Bruce Willis classic. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a classic.
That's good. That's a good start, then, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a great movie. Great movie. Do you remember the first time you saw it?
I genuinely don't remember the first time I saw it. I think it's something that's so embedded in pop culture, so many references to stuff that it's just kind of always been there. And my memories of first watching it have evaporated into the ether. So
yeah, mine's the same. I have a really, really strong memory of sitting in my kitchen in my parents' house. I was probably about 12 or 13 and it being on the black and white TV they had in the kitchen, and I was cooking a pizza. It was in the oven. I wasn't cooking anything really.
All right, Giuseppe.
I was reheating a frozen pizza. And it was like, I'm sure it was like a Friday night and it was winter. It was coming up to Christmas. We'll get into the Christmas film argument, the Christmas film or not Christmas film debate, I should say. But yeah, it was winter and it was on the black and white TV, and I remember sitting there watching it on that. But that wasn't the first time I'd seen it. But that's my oldest, most strongest memory, because I remember sitting there watching it, and it got to the point where the policeman who's outside the plaza turns to it's CIA agents who turn up in their helicopters, them lot.
Yeah, FBI, I believe.
FBI, that's it, yeah. and he says, why don't you wake up and smell what you're shoveling? And it was sampled on a track by a band called Ned's Atomic Dustbin, and I never knew that's where the sample was from. And I think that was probably one of, if not the first time I'd ever accidentally stumbled across something that had been sampled in a song in its original form. And I proper got excited. Like, oh, that's where that's from. Like, it was like I'd found something out, and that is burnt into my brain, you know. But yeah, like you, this film has always existed. I don't know when I first saw it. It's just always, in its truest sense, it is a classic. It has just always been around, you know.
I mean, the earliest thing that I can remember about Die Hard, it isn't actually about the film. I can remember having the Die Hard trilogy game on PS1, which is, I mean, each game is a completely different game in the sense of one's a first-person shooter, one's like a Time Crisis arcade type game, and the other one I think is a driving game.
That's my overriding memory of the Die Hard with a Vengeance game, is the taxi cab scene through the park part of the game. Yeah,
that's the earliest thing that I can remember, and I can just remember this really bad polygon John McClane, which was very clearly, you could clearly see that he had bare feet, which was a good start. Just running through an even worse polygon Nakatomi Plaza and working your way up the levels, and that was probably that was my first thing into Die Hard. I must have seen the film shortly after or shortly before, pretty sure. And I can't remember how quickly I fell in love with it, but I know that I've always enjoyed it. It's always been
I don't know anyone who doesn't like Die Hard. I'm sure I do. I just probably never have conversations about it.
I try to keep myself clear of people who don't like Die Hard. Not actively, but in retrospect, it makes total sense.
It was the first thing you ever said to me.
Was it?
Yeah, it's Die Hard. I was like, it's all right.
Yeah.
Right, we can be friends.
Yeah, I even put the clipboard down, so I didn't even have to go to question 2.
It was made even weirder by the fact you had no shoes on and a white vest at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I'd cut my hair into a balding 80s action star.
You clearly shaved a widow's peak into your haircut, which is very strange.
You call it strange, I call it amazing.
Yeah. I was in love with you the moment I met you. I was like, this dude's all right.
Wrong again.
Should we do the plot? We always forget to do the plot. Let's do the plot now.
Let's kick it off.
Because we get halfway through the show normally, and then remember we haven't actually mentioned what happens in the film.
Okay, let's get it to a place where I can read it. So, NYPD cop John McClane goes on a Christmas vacation to visit his...
Right, do you want to do it in a movie voice? Should we? I tell you what, I reckon you've got a good movie voice on you, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I'll try and find some suitable... I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I will try and find some suitable action movie synthesizer to put underneath this while it happens. You know what I mean?
All I have to do is just channel Pablo Francisco, Little Tortilla Boy. Anybody who knows that sketch, check it out. It's amazing. But here we go. NYPD cop John McClane gives a... See, it's not great, is it?
No. It sounded like Christian Bale. We're already over. When you can't hear us, that's Ryan storming out of the room now in disgust.
I've given up with this podcast.
Little tortilla boy.
Little tortilla boy.
Little tortillas.
NYPD cop John McClane gives a...
You still sound ill. Like you need a lozenge. Little lozenge boy. What's your deepest register?
Not very. I have a naturally high timbre.
Could you go down?
I can go down, but it doesn't sound particularly great.
NYPD cop John McClane.
NYPD cop John McClane.
Oh, that's pretty nice. It's
NYPD cop John McClane.
If anyone hasn't noticed,
goes
this
on a
film
Christmas
has an NYPD cop in it called John McClane. We've established that.
Keep repeating it, and maybe it will stick. I was going to do it in my normal voice because I can't do a movie voice, okay?
NYPD. Yeah, no, one more time. Oh. NYPD cop John
McClane goes on a Christmas vacation to visit his wife Holly in Los Angeles. It's because there's not enough light. Can't read. Start as you mean to go on. There we go. Hey,
there you go. Hey.
NYPD cop John McClane goes on a Christmas vacation to visit his wife Holly in Los Angeles, where she works for the Nakatomi Corporation. While they are there, the Nakatomi headquarters, for a Christmas party, a group of robbers led by Hans Gruber take control of the building and hold everyone hostage, with the exception of John. While they plan to perform a lucrative heist, unable to escape with no mediation.
It's a good job you're not trying to do this voice at the same time.
Let's start that line again. Let's just start the whole thing again. NYPD cop John McClane goes on a Christmas vacation to visit his wife Holly in Los Angeles, where she works for the Nakatomi Corporation. While they are there, the Nakatomi headquarters, for a Christmas party, a group of robbers led by Hans Gruber take control of the building and hold everyone hostage, with the exception of John, while they plan to perform a lucrative heist. Unable to escape and with no immediate police response, John is forced to take matters into his own hands.
Into his own hands.
You've got it much better than I have.
56 years of Christmas. How old's this film? 88? How many years?
1988, so that makes it the same age as your wife, my sister. So that makes it 35 years old coming up.
35 years old.
Nearly 36 even.
36. I was going to say your sister's older than that. Anyway.
Well, I'm 31. So she's 4 years older than me. She's 35.
Yeah.
So it's 36.
36 years old. I thought it came out in 87. Did it come out in 88?
It says 88.
I'm sure
July
you're right.
20th, 88.
Yeah, it's in the summer. A summer blockbuster. Christmas movie that's a summer blockbuster.
But that's like all the TV shows. They all film the Christmas specials in the middle of August, don't they?
Yeah, they don't normally release them in the middle of August, though, do they? So, I mean, we might as well get into this now as we're here. The blockbuster?
I mean, it is a blockbuster.
The age-old argument of whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It clearly is, 100%. Although Bruce Willis himself said it's not, and he was in it, I think he's wrong. It did come out in the summer, which would make it a summer blockbuster, not a Christmas movie. It's set at Christmas. He's at a Christmas party. It has a Christmas music at the end of it. It's not Christmas. And there's even memes like, it's not Christmas till I see Hans Gruber fall off the Nakatomi Tower, right? You know what I mean?
I mean, there's so many references to Christmas. It's not just it's set at Christmas, because if that was it...
Ho, 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 now I have a machine gun,
exactly,
right?
you know, there's so many references to it that for anybody to say it's not a Christmas film just because it came out in July, I mean, it doesn't really make any difference. The reason it came out in July is because it's a blockbuster. It's a summer blockbuster. So that's when you're going to get the most eyes on the product. That's when you're going to get the most people to come and see it. So it makes sense. It's 100% a Christmas movie. Yeah. I don't even feel like this is a debate anymore. I feel like it's been answered by the fact that anybody who's seen the film, I reckon that's who actually argues it's not a Christmas film, with people who don't actually or haven't seen it in a while.
I think it's contrary types. It also has the same plot as Home Alone, which is a Christmas movie, so definitely a Christmas movie. You know what I mean?
He's actually one of the people who was due to be cast as John McClane.
What? Macaulay Culkin?
No, Joe Pesci.
Yeah, 100% Christmas movie. Bruce Willis says it's not, though. When he was asked a few years ago, he said, no, it's not a Christmas movie. It came out in the summer, which really annoyed me because he's wrong, because it is. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say I watch it every Christmas. You can watch it, though, in the summer. You can watch it any time of the year. It doesn't have to be Christmas to watch it. It feels really Christmassy. The sequel, it's constantly snowing, again, set at Christmas. They're at the airport in New York, I believe, isn't it? Also makes it feel really, makes those first two feel really Christmassy. And the third one is set in the summer. They're running around in Harlem and various places in New York, and it's clearly summer. It's quite hot. But those first two undeniably winter-based Christmas fun. You know,
I mean, I suppose from an element of what are you looking from a Christmas? What are you looking for from a Christmas film? If you're looking for festive cheer, then yeah, it's probably not going to be the film that you stick on. Yeah, it's got a happy ending. It's got
I'd cheer in it quite a lot. You know what I mean?
I think that says more about you than anything else. It's not necessarily a film that you're going to sit around with the family and watch a nice Christmas film. It's not Elf. It's not
late at night though.
Oh yeah,
10 o'clock at night. The kids have gone to bed. Yeah. The sherry's pouring, full of mince pies. You know what I mean? Sitting on the sofa, I could watch Die Hard.
I just think people perhaps dislike the film, and so therefore it's not a Christmas film. But for me, it is a Christmas film. But it's also a film you don't have to watch at Christmas, as he just said. So it's multifaceted. It's layered. It's like onions, as Shrek would say. That it has layers. There we go.
Yeah.
Nice seamless transition to Shrek there. Yeah. You heard it here first. Who thought we'd be speaking about Shrek on a Die Hard podcast?
Anyone who's listened to a single episode before this might guess this was going to go a bit sideways. You know?
Yeah, July 20th, 1988. So firmly in the summer blockbuster release schedule. Kind of right at the height of probably towards the end of summer by that point, from a point of view of most blockbusters released in that sort of mid to late June period, so that they set the trend of it's easier to start the summer with a hot film than to follow other hot films, because you're always going to be trying to top, such and such was released 2 weeks ago, let's try and top that. Whereas if you go first, you set the benchmark. So yeah, it's firmly in that summer blockbuster category, but you know, stick it on when those Christmas decorations are going up and you're up a ladder trying to put the tinsel in the final corner, and if you fall off, you can pretend you're Hans Gruber, just like Alan Rickman.
So this was like 1988. So you've got it's near the beginning of the peak of action, Hollywood action. It starts in the late 80s, goes all the way through to roughly mid-90s. Your peak action, buddy cop, your Lethal Weapons, which would have been the year before, because that is 87.
That is 87, yeah.
You got, Arnie would have been literally in his late 80s pomp. You're talking Predator, Running Man-esque era, Commando kind of era, Arnie. So it comes right out at that time where America is, and the world, I suppose, globally, is really getting into this idea of the action hero, isn't it? Which is interesting because they cast Bruce Willis in a movie playing an action role, and from my understanding of it, it didn't go over too well at first.
Well, it's difficult for us to kind of, or specifically for me to imagine a time where Bruce Willis wasn't a big action star. But at the time, he wasn't. He'd done Moonlighting. That was fairly successful.
He was like a romantic comedy kind of dude.
I think as the Stephen D'Souza called him, he was a smart ass. So in writing Die Hard, how do you make him not come across like a smart ass?
Well, he comes across like quite a bit of a smart ass in Die Hard, to be fair. You know what I mean?
Obviously, he didn't manage to not achieve that.
I'd be interested to see how much of a smart ass he is in Moonlighting then, because he's quite...
He's quite wisecracking in that, and I think that's probably, ho,
ho, ho, now I have a machine gun.
Yeah, conversations between D'Souza and Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was like, bring that humour on, because that's what he was known for. That's what he's good at.
Moonlighting was like a romantic comedy program with him and Sybil Shepherd. I think he played a detective. I think it's a detective agency called Moonlighting Detective Agencies, but I vaguely remember it being on TV. I was very young. But yeah, from what I understand is when the trailer first went out, people either laughed or booed when Bruce Willis came on.
They didn't like it, did they?
No, and they were worried before it came out.
Which is why sort of earlier posters and the early posters,
he's not on it.
He's not on it, and it's Nakatomi Plaza, which is the the selling thing about which I mean, it
shows you how little confidence they had in it. Yeah,
and I mean, to be fair, from a stakeholder perspective of let's bank on Bruce Willis. If you look at his track record before that in film, he'd done, I think it's called First Dates, which was a romantic comedy.
Romantic comedies, yeah.
So not and then he had a film called Sunset, which apparently nobody saw. And this is a big undertaking to go, okay, we're going to put Bruce Willis in this role. And okay, it was a previous intellectual property. Yeah. For those who don't know, it's a sequel to The Detective, which was starring Frank Sinatra, old Blue Eyes himself, and he was offered first refusal.
He had to get first refusal because of his contract.
And by that time, he was like, I think I'm too old for this.
Could you imagine that? Old Blue Eyes, just running around with no socks on. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem right, does it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, that like, so only 2 years later, you get into similar territory with the casting of Michael Keaton as Batman, known for his comedy chops, pre-internet, but the nerd version of the internet back then, you know, comic books and opinion letters and things like that. No one was happy with the casting of Michael Keaton for similar reasons. He's not an action star and all this sort of stuff. The dude from Mr. Mum and all that, you know. So there must be something in the air around the late 80s. There must have been looking for something. I think you've had Lethal Weapon, which is Shane Black's amazing script for Lethal Weapon, reinvented the buddy cop movie, which had been around forever, hadn't it? You know, buddy cop movies and such, all the way back to, you know, Popeye Doyle and all of those sort of movies. But I'm wondering if, like, because there's such an element of humour in the Lethal Weapons, mostly the sequels, but the first one still has elements of humour in it, where if they were looking for, so you got your Stallone, not a lot of humour in Stallone's movies. Arnie's, there's humour in there, you know what I mean?
It's a different type of humour though, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's I've just killed somebody, pithy one-liner.
Yeah.
Well, some of them are pithy, some of them just aren't.
Some of them are just the way he delivers it, though,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. In that thick accent.
And I wonder how much the success of this, Bruce Willis-wise, being a hit, you know, influenced the casting of Michael Keaton as Batman. Because you think, if this had gone the other way and wasn't a hit and flopped all over the shop,
it would have been rethinking everything.
Okay, it's not the same, you know, this is 20th Century Fox.
I was going to say
Warner Brothers was Batman, but Warner Brothers would probably have looked at it and gone, well, we tried a comedic lead and that didn't, well, they tried a comedic lead and that didn't work. We need somebody who is a, you know, proper leading man or a leading man of yesteryear in that kind of ilk. And you know, I think for the most part, it's just really very, very difficult to imagine Bruce Willis not being a big action star, because he took to it like a duck to water. It was very much. All of the action scenes looked legitimate. It didn't look out of place. I think, you know, you've mentioned it previously in the Predators film. Adrian Brody is the hardened military guy. Doesn't quite work. No, I think all he does is he does the Bale voice. I'm going to speak with a gruff voice. So now I'm a hardened military leader.
Yeah, I think I feel like there was a period where action films kept trying to get like proper actors in to do stuff. I think after Batman again with Christian Bale, I think they were like, well, what we need is like proper method actors in our action movies. That will be a thing. And then, as you say, in the case of Predators, it does not work. No offense to Adrian Brody, but it took me out of that movie at every second. You know what I mean? Unlike Die Hard, where it works superbly. Bruce Willis is perfectly cast as Bruce Willis. Would be doing Bruce Willis in every film after this, and probably, like I say, I can't really remember what it was like in Moonlighting, but he's been doing the same acts for the next 30-odd years. And it's a great act. It's a great shtick. You know what you're going to get with a Bruce Willis movie. And it all starts here with Die Hard, doesn't it? It's mindlessly gratuitous violence, like funny one-lines and impossible scenarios, you know, and usually a vest for a while. There was a lot of vest wearing going on.
Yeah, it's kind of the symbol of the late 80s in a particular demographic in New York.
And this movie is very 80s, yet timeless. It's very hard. I find it very difficult to pinpoint what makes an 80s action movie 80s. What makes it? Scale.
Everything is just to the nth degree. There's no sort of like, well, if I don't do this, then I'm going to get a bit hurt. It's like, oh no, if you don't do this, everyone's going to die.
Yeah, it's the ridiculous action scenes, huge, implausible plots, the gratuitous, mindless violence, like from start to finish. And every character is on Red Bull. Like, the baddies are bad, the goodies are good, the women are women, the 80s cokehead in this is the most 80s yuppie cokehead. Hans, baby!
Sprechen Sie Deutsch. He's just so...
There's nothing subtle at all in any of it, you know.
I mean, I'd forgotten a lot about this when I watched it. And when I first saw him, I can't remember what the first scene is where you see him, but I was like, it's not going to be too long before he's doing cocaine. And then straight away, it's like, oh, hi Harley, and he's just instantly dislikable.
Hans, baby. It's so good. It's like, and that's the thing, for something that is so of the 80s, it's still somehow timeless. It's so, I guess when something's good enough, it transcends those sort of things, because it is steeped in everything about it is so of its time. But I guess it was like, I wouldn't say it was genre defining, but as close to that as you can get.
100% genre defining.
Do you think?
Well, you think about it. How many films have there been where there's been a lone person in a singular location taken on? You've got, I think, for anybody who's seen movies that made us, there's a little like overdub of that episode where it's like Die Hard in the White House, Die Hard on a plane, Die Hard in Mexico, Die Hard in and it's so true.
It's true, actually, because it's that Olympus Has Fallen or whatever.
Yeah,
right? That is just Die Hard in the White House.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Home Alone is Die Hard, but he's 12. You know what I mean?
It's slightly different from the spectrum of, obviously you've got the Schwarzenegger and the Stallone films where it's one man against an army, but that's usually over masses of locations and usually fairly over the top. I think, whilst I'm not saying that there are very high stakes in this and everything is not over the top, what's the word I'm looking for? Everything is big, but it doesn't get to a point where it's like, well, this is just getting a bit silly now.
Well, that's what I really like.
He's not using a machine gun for what seems like 5 minutes without having to reload. That kind of thing.
That does kind of happen a lot, though.
I think that's.
But I mean, if you just think about the concept that he spends the entire film without any shoes on, it's a weird thing to have in a film. The main hero spends the entire film. Only once does he try to put on some dead dude's boots. They don't fit. And then he gives up after that. You don't see him trying to find any shoes after that. He does wrap his feet in his shirt at one point.
And you do happen to notice, if you look very closely, you can see a pair of rubber feet that he's wearing.
Oh yeah, I've got that. I think that is at 52 minutes in. I think it is.
Just after Hans goes, the glass, but in a German accent.
Oh no, sorry, it's I think it's 155 minutes in. Does that sound right?
155 minutes into it.
That's what I've written.
155 minutes is well over 2 hours.
This movie's not that long, is it?
No, that's 2 hours and 35 minutes right there.
That's what I've written. 155. Actually, what I've written is 155 feet. I don't know what that means.
Maybe that's how many feet he had to go through when he was working on the film.
How long is this movie, do you know?
It's just under 2 hours. About an hour and 49.
It definitely doesn't happen at an hour and 55 then, does it? I don't know. But yeah, you can definitely see...
What film were you watching?
You can definitely see his rubberized feet a couple of times in the film. One point is when he's up on the roof and he jumps. I think it's not when he blows up the roof and he jumps off with the hose wrapped around him. It's before that, and they're shooting at him and he jumps over and his trousers, like, not roll up, but, bunch up or whatever, and he's clearly got big rubber Hobbit feet on, which is just funny as anything. But
what you say is it is a really odd thing to have in a film.
It's an odd concept.
However, when you kind of have a little look at it a bit deeper and you analyse it just a tad more, and you go, well, in that moment where you hear a gunshot, your first thought isn't, let's put some shoes on. You know, okay, he's a cop, so he's perhaps a little bit more used to those environments where you've got to think fast and, you know, think on your feet, for lack of a better term. But to just go and straight away into, I wouldn't call it hero mode, because it's not he's not a hero in this. He is in the sense of he saves the day, but he's not your typical archetypal hero where you go, he can do everything. He falters quite a lot. You know, the scene in the elevator shaft where he falls, you know, he's not doing things that are, everything is almost a cause and effect in the sense of, oh God, I've got to deal with this situation. How am I going to do it? Oh, that'll do. It's not, it's not an Arnold Schwarzenegger film where it's like, I'm 6'5", built, you know, like a shit house, and I can do anything. You know, there's a lot of realism in he's, as Bruce Willis said, the thing that made him like the character was that he's just a normal guy in the wrong place at the wrong time.
You're the wrong guy in the wrong place at the wrong time. Story of my life. That's the sequel, though. Yeah, it is interesting. It's a fascinating concept, though. I don't think I could run around shooting a bunch of terrorists without my shoes on. That doesn't seem right to me. You know?
Yeah, the shoes is the thing that's stopping me there.
Yeah. He also has the magic ability to turn his vest from white to green. And between one scene to the next, his vest suddenly turns green. It's you know, when he's crawling around in I think it's just after the elevator scene, he's crawling through the air vents, and he's up, and the dude's poking the air vents, and he shoots him. His vest is white when he gets out of that air vent, and for the rest of the film, he's wearing a green vest. And I never noticed it in the years of spent watching that film. I never noticed. I just always went, oh, his shirt gets dirty. It doesn't. It becomes a green shirt. It just literally from one scene to the next is now wearing a green shirt. It's crazy. I didn't notice it until it was pointed out to me, and then you can't unsee it.
Well, that does remind me of the reaction that John McTiernan had when they just finished filming, just finished editing, put the first cut together, and they screened it for audiences, and I think it's about 25 minutes in, and there's a scene towards the end of the film where they're like, how are they going to get away? And out of the truck comes an ambulance. Well, in the opening shots where the terrorists first arrive, they all come out of the van and you can see right into the truck.
There's no ambulance.
And there's no ambulance. And people were like, oh no, it's ruined the film. And John McTiernan was like, I don't care. We're going to put it out anyway. You know, almost. Yeah,
if that's what ruins the film for you, then you've got issues, really, isn't it? Yeah.
It's just, you know, I think there's so much you could probably look here and go, well, that's not realistic. That's not realistic, but that's not one. That's one of those things.
This is not that film.
No, if you're looking for ultra realism, then
you should have got Adrian Brody.
Yeah. And luckily, I think a lot of people do agree with us. It was a very, very successful film.
Was he successful out the gate?
Well, let's have a...
Let's look at some figures.
Okay, so it had a budget of 20...
David Bowie, then let's listen to some figures.
It had a budget of $28 million.
Right.
And on its opening weekend, unfortunately, it only made $601,000.
That's because it had Bruce Willis in it.
Which is a very low number. That is squeaky bum time for anybody who's got any kind of money in this film. $601,000 on a $28 million budget on your opening weekend.
And you know, you also spent advertising as well, haven't you? You know,
that is probably, for a lot of executives at the time, that's kind of confirming that we shouldn't have banked on a Bruce Willis. We were right to take him off the poster because nobody's coming to see the film.
Whoever decided to cast him is probably squeaking at that point, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah. However, as if miracles can happen.
Was it word of mouth?
Something happened. So probably word of mouth. People saw it and liked the film, fell in love with it. Because how can you not? Let's be honest. Gross, US and Canada, a whopping 83.3 million.
Nice.
So that more than makes up for a poor opening weekend.
Yeah.
And then worldwide, 141.6 million.
Nice.
Which is a staggering amount. So that's £120 million. And in today's coinage, 319 million quid. So it very, very, very successful.
And that's not including the computer games. You know what I mean?
And any
all
other
the
kind
DVD sales.
Yeah. I mean...
Or the die-hard white vest turning green hyper-global colour vests that they brought out.
I wonder how many men who were wearing white vests and thinking, or their wives and their girlfriends were thinking, I wish he'd be a bit more stylish. Die Hard comes out. Those people must have been like, hey, this is the look now. Everybody
white
wants...
vests were around for most of the 90s, though, I think. Early noughties as well. There's a lot of white vestiges. And it's all Bruced Willis' fault. He's got one of them Bruced Willis.
So, as we've just discussed, very successful at the box office. If you go by IMDb ratings, which are always, I find, a very quick way of just seeing how well it's received, an 8.2 out of 10, which puts it in the top 100 films, I believe, of all time, according to IMDb scores.
Wow, really?
And then a Rotten Tomatoes audience score of 94%.
That's
so
amazing.
very, very well liked and adored. As we said, July 20th, 1988, and it was directed by the famous John McTiernan. It was based on a Roderick Thorpe novel called Nothing Lasts Forever, which was a sequel to The Detective, as we discussed earlier, which was converted to the screen, starring Blue Eyes Frank Sinatra.
I've never seen it.
I haven't seen it either, and it's as far removed from what Die Hard is as you could possibly get. It was,
out of sheer curiosity, I would have watched it. To be honest,
I think it's a film of its time. It's very much in the same. It's a murder investigation mystery film, so it's very in the same ilk as your Vertigos, your North by Northwest, that kind of time.
Sounds all right,
and probably is. But if you're looking for something that is similar to Die Hard, you're not really going to get that.
No, but it's always interesting to see where these things come from, isn't it?
It was so the original screenplay was first written by Jeb Stewart. He was the first guy to kind of convert it from the novel Nothing Lasts Forever, before eventually Steven Souza came in and took over and put some more humour in there and basically finished it off. It was produced by Lawrence Gordon and Joel Silver.
Joel Silver, pretty much responsible for most of the 80s, 90s action movies that we were just talking about.
Commando.
Lethal Weapon, I'm pretty sure Joel Silver, isn't it?
It was the score was composed by Michael Kamen.
Michael Caine, man.
I told you before, you've got to be louder in this bit.
Bassoon.
Play your violin properly.
Bassoon, where are you? I can't hear you.
If I said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I do not want the cello going over the kazoo.
Timpani, louder. Not that loud.
Pipe it down over there. And finally, it was the cinematographer was John de Bont, who, an interesting fact about John de Bont, for those who don't know, he worked on a film called Raw, which was set in the African Serengeti, and he was legitimately partially scalped by a lion because they were real lions and they weren't trained lions. They were legitimate wild lions. And he
swiped the top of his head, did it? Or something?
Yeah,
tried to chew his head off.
Carried on filmmaking, and that's enough to make anybody go, I don't want to do movies anymore, even if they don't have lions. But
I often think that. You see that, don't you, when they're actors are acting with lions or whatever. pythons or bears, and I'm like, nah, because you're not allowed to drug them anymore. You know what I mean? It's not like that.
All the animals.
It's not like that. It's not like that bear is full of Valium. You know what I mean? It's like, nah.
But they do say in show business, never work with animals or children.
Yeah, it's like the chimpanzees or something, isn't it? It's like, just don't look him directly in the eye. It's like, yeah.
Oh, he's lovely, really, but don't piss him off. It's, you know.
Is that that last Rambo film they made? And I saw Sly Stallone talking about I think it was a python. And he said, "Oh, we're not doing this with special effects. I mean, you can't afford it. You have to do it with a real one." He was like, "All right."
I mean, what does the world come to when special effects cost more than actual snake?
Actually, it's cheaper. We borrowed one. It's probably. Can you train a snake? I don't think you can. You know what I mean?
A lot of people have died trying.
Yeah, I don't think you can train a snake. I don't think they're trainable.
Yeah, you know? I mean, you can only.
I don't think a snake gives monkeys about a bonio treat. You know what I mean? Getting its belly rubbed. You know.
Yeah, I've never understood anybody who. I mean, I understand the fascination with wild animals, but to actually go and work with them when they're wild animals, it's like
I've got BBC. I don't need to go there. I can just watch David Attenborough talk about them. You know
You're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
So this film obviously stars, as we have already mentioned, the charismatic Bruce Willis.
Yeah, Bruno himself. Yeah.
He does just captivate the screen immediately, doesn't he? It's not.
Oh, he's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about Bruce Willis, and I always say sometimes there's certain quality about an actor that you can't quite put your finger on, but just makes you want to watch him more and more and more. And Bruce Willis has got that in abundance.
Oh, he's a movie star through and through.
Yeah,
for sure.
You know, probably if you think about it, he's probably the last proper movie star, not actor in movies, but movie star. You think, who else? I mean, obviously you've got...
That can't possibly be true. Hang on, I'm trying to think. The Rock's an action star. Will Smith's an action star. Will Smith came well after this.
Yeah,
went on in a similar thing, was comedy, and he's a rapper, then a comedian, and then went on to be like the most bankable action star.
I'm not going to lie though, you give me a choice between Willis and Will Smith.
Oh no, it's not comparable, but it doesn't make Willis the last though, does it?
For me, he's the last. I mean, I think probably, as you say, it was the turning point and the peak of that type of movie, and I think beyond that, the start. Perhaps he kind of started the trend of going for more comedic roles. And it's an
interesting point. I take your point. It's an interesting point because obviously Stallone, Schwarzenegger already established. Gibson was already established. Well, Lethal Weapon had been out. Mad Max. So I'd say he was established as an action star. I think after '88, I'm trying to think who came through afterwards. My mind, I'm just drawing blanks. Apart from Will Smith and The Rock.
I just think it was a different kind of
Butler.
Well, it's a different kind of action star. It's not quite the same, and I think Bruce Willis is that trendsetter because he's more comedic and he's more, he's not 6'5". He's not,
Yeah, I really think of Bruce Willis and Mel Gibson in the same vein. It's that charming, full of charisma. Like you say, they're both short, really funny, also do really good action movies. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think of those two. It's like the same way you sort of think of like Stallone and Arnie in the same breath. I think of Willis and Gibson in the same breath. They're twinned in my mind. It's it's that era.
I just find I don't think there's anybody after that who really has that same feeling, that same, as you say, Will Smith. Yeah, he's bankable, but I think it's a different kind of action star to what those four names that we've just mentioned are.
I don't know. I think Will Smith is definitely in that ilk. He's funny. He does action really well. I mean, obviously he's fallen off a lot lately, but they all do eventually, don't they? All action stars. There's only so many times you can see someone save the world. You know what I mean? I think Will Smith gets it. I think he's very similar. Charming, good looking, funny. He's very tall though. I think Will Smith. He's a big fella. Unlike Willis, I'm pretty sure he's a short ass.
I think he's about 5'10".
It's not that short, I suppose. Yeah.
But compared to what we're used to seeing, he's...
How tall's The Rock? He's a big fella.
The Rock's 6'5".
He's a big lad.
He's 6'5".
Is he 6'5"?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, he's come from pro wrestling where somebody who's 6 foot is considered a small guy.
Is that right? That's a short wrestler.
It's ridiculous. Even like The Rock is not considered a tall guy in pro wrestling.
In wrestling terms,
he's like your average height. Whereas everybody from that Attitude Era, late 90s, who weren't Hulk Hogan, weren't Randy Savage,
how tall's Hulk?
Hulk was 6'7".
Really?
Yeah.
He probably still is.
I mean, it's difficult to tell because he tells so many lies. But he's about 6'7".
He's a bit of a fibber, is he?
Yeah. He was going to be the drummer for Metallica.
I've heard that actually.
You know,
couldn't be worse than Lars. You know what
I mean, you could. It's Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, Lars is a terrible drummer.
Well,
that's a different podcast, though. Fascinating. That's interesting. Yeah, so I do take your point. I do. I know what you mean. There is the action star era that basically started to fade by the mid 90s, and it has little pockets of renaissance every now and then. You'll get the odd movie, but that golden era, I take your point. I think Willis is the last of those to come through.
Got in just towards the end of it.
Just at the beginning of the peak, I think you could Die Hard is like that. It's the mid but beginning of the peak, like that late 80s, all the way through to the mid 90s. You get so many. A lot of them are sequels. We get so many action movies through the late 80s. I think Willis rides in just at the peak of it, and I think you're right. I think that makes him one of the last ones to come through. Off the top of my head, so I take your point. Yeah.
And it's very important to have a strong co-star opposite him playing his wife, Holly Gennaro McClane.
I thought you were going to talk about Alan Rickman. I was like, playing opposite him, his wife. He's in 4 scenes.
And that is played by Bonnie Bedelia.
Yeah. She's great, actually. She's a really good actress.
I think she's fantastic, and I can't think of anything else that I can remember seeing her in. Obviously, I know she's been in other things, but there's nothing else that I can go, oh, that's Bonnie Bedelia. She's in Die Hard. I've never seen her in anything else.
Also in Die Hard 2.
I mean,
she's in Die Hard. she's in Die Hard 2 a lot more than Die Hard 1.
I know we're going to be speaking about German terrorists in a sec, but you don't have to start doing the accent quite.
I'll get us cancelled. Don't worry. Yeah, she's in the second one a lot more than she's in the first one. I think. Yes, I feel like she is anyway. She's great in the second one because at the end of this one, spoilers. She decks the most repugnant 80s news reporter dude in the world. And then in the second one, they're stuck on a plane together and it's just comedy gold throughout. You know?
I think she's fantastic in this. And, you know, I said this last time we spoke on the Terminator podcast about Michael Biehn.
Michael Biehn. I'm not
going to lie. I was trying to gloss over that.
I think it's Bean. It's Bean. We spent a lot of that episode going, Bean, Bien, Bian, Bien, Bien. I think it's just Bean.
And you laughed at me for saying Michael Biehn.
What I laughed at was Mr. Bean. Is what I
That's a you thing.
Yeah.
How, obviously, there's other factors in there, but how he wasn't as big of a star as you can. Michael Biehn.
Yeah.
He... Are you going to sabotage this episode as well?
I was drinking lemonade the other day.
Are we just going to do a different soft drink every episode?
I'm a secret lemonade drinker.
I was surprised at how you obviously had Aliens, you had Terminator, and how those set you on a very, very high trajectory, and there just wasn't anything that I mean, I know he was in Tombstone, but that was some years later, and by that point he'd fallen off a little bit.
Yeah, you would have expected a lot more from his career after those two movies.
And I think the same goes for Bonnie Bedelia. I mean, I would see her in the same ilk and the same breath as Gina Davis.
I do. That's a good call, yeah. Like you say, in the second one, she really holds some comedy chops as well as sort of playing straight as she does in the first one. It's much more straight role. In the second one, she really holds her own in the sort of comedy scenes. I think about this sometimes. I think like there was a period in like the 80s where it was a lot easier for actors or maybe action stars, as it were, to fall off after their big movies. I'm sure it's probably always been the same, but I kind of feel like there was a period in the early noughties where there was just so much money in Hollywood where the actors would go on to do the movies for money. Like you'll see like, I don't know, like you'll see like Mark Hamill kind of disappeared from movies after Star Wars. Harrison Ford went on to be Harrison Ford, you know. And then you'll see like the two main dudes from like Breaking Bad, the younger one, and to a certain degree Bryan Cranston, but you'll see them appear in sort of fast and furious kind of esque adjacent movies that look terrible, but you go, well, I'm assuming they paid him millions to be in that. And I think like there's that thing where you can nowadays you can make the money after the big blockbuster film, but your career might not necessarily continue, but at least you'll make the money now. As in the 80s, I feel like if your career fell off in the 80s, you nearly always those actors ended up broke. Is how it seems to me, you know what I mean?
I feel like it was a much more cutthroat kind of time in the sense of, okay, you've been the female lead in Die Hard.
Yeah,
okay, you need something more than that. Whereas, as you're saying,
the phone's not ringing. So in the 80s, as it were, or 90s, you'd go off and do those sort of B movies, but they weren't paying you. Whereas now, because there's so much money, you'll go off and do those B movies, but you'll get your money. You'll get $1 million for doing it or something. That's kind of how I see it.
And because of that money, those B movies don't look like B movies.
Most of them look all right. Yeah.
They look like, that might be an all right. How many times have I sat down and watched a Liam Neeson film where I've gone, that looks all right, expecting similar sort of things to Taken, and it's just Taken on a train, Taken in a car.
Yeah.
Taken in the snow.
Taking the piss.
Yeah. I've seen that one. That's great.
Yeah, like Nicolas Cage. I mean, like those movies Nicolas Cage has been doing for the last 10 years to pay his tax bill off are clearly enough to pay his tax bill off.
Yeah.
But they're low budget B movies. And I think like a lot of that is to do with like the advent of digital filming. So you don't need the endless reels, the cameras, the film, the this, that, and the other. You can pare your production down and still get a quality finished product. And therefore you can pay to get a director who's maybe not working so much, or a director who's on his way up, but you can pay the star. And you know, if you've got a good script and you've got a good editor, you can sort of, like you say, it doesn't look like those bad movies used to look in the 80s. But yeah, I kind of feel like we may be coming back round to that era where our stars disappeared. Is it Daisy Ridley who's in the Star Wars movies? Her latest movie came out, and I think it may be the most unwatched film ever released.
I didn't even know she had another film coming out.
30,000 or something. Yeah, off of 20 million or whatever.
What was happening 5-10 years ago, and the money that was being pumped in, it's just not sustainable. At some point, there's going to come a point where it has to take a dip, because
you've got obviously cinema was king, and then you had VHS and Betamax, home video. So that fuels those sort of B movies in the 80s and 90s is blockbusters and independent video shops. Then you get the DVD boom. It gets even cheaper. Digital cameras come out, so you can make movies and you can just print a DVD. I don't need to know how to make a VHS cassette. I can just put a DVD burner on my computer and there you go, copies of the film. So that sort of distribution arc gets easier. Like there was a period, doesn't even seem that long ago, like maybe like early noughties to late noughties, where you'd go to supermarkets and there'd be some random films in the DVD section at supermarkets. And some of them were like student films that had somehow got some sort of distribution deal nice and cheap with some never heard of before film company. But now the DVD boom's over and you get the streaming boom and that pops up. But I feel like each time that happens, the revenue, the money these filmmakers make drops. And I feel once you've got to, well, we can put your film on some sort of streaming platform that you can get via your Fire Stick on Amazon, I don't think you're making much money out of that at that point. You know what I mean? Like you said, I think that's where the revenue starts to die if it's not sustainable anymore, you know?
Yeah. So I think in a roundabout sort of way, I think what we're kind of saying is that if Bonnie Bedelia was just starting or just got Die Hard at, say, you know, in the last 10 years, then you'd see 5, 6, 7 different other films with her playing essentially the same character, very similar kind of script.
Yeah.
And we'd see her a lot more, so she would feel like much more of a movie star.
I imagine she was probably up against, I wouldn't be surprised if she went for a lot of auditions that Michelle Pfeiffer ended up getting the role for.
We get onto those would-be castings later, but the names that are in there, she's very much lost in the shuffle there, I think. I think if you...
Because I could see her doing that Dangerous Minds film that Michelle Pfeiffer did, where she's a teacher, goes into an underprivileged school. Easy. She could do that. She could smash that out of the park.
You could see Bonnie Bedelia doing Beetlejuice.
Yeah,
you can see her doing The Fly. I think those names are kind of interchangeable. Unfortunately, obviously, somebody out of a list of names is going to be towards the bottom of the list, and that's not because of the quality of their performances. It's just because
studio trends and stuff.
Exactly. So if you know, in a list of names, if I was to say Gina Davis, people go, "Oh yeah, I know Gina Davis." Michelle Pfeiffer, I know her. If you say Bonnie Bedelia, they go, and you go John McClane's wife, and they go, "Oh, John McClane's wife." She becomes known for
did a lot of theatre.
You know,
that's usually where it goes.
Yeah. And I think she's great in this. You've got Reginald Vell Johnson playing Sergeant Al Powell.
Why don't you wake up and smell what you shoveling? He's so good. He turns up in the second one as well. They crowbar him into the second one, which is great. He's in it. He's in every film I've ever seen him in. He plays a cop. I can't remember. I probably should have looked it up. But yeah, he's been in various films playing the same character. I think he turned up. Last thing I saw him in was Mike and Molly playing Preacher in Mike and Molly. And when I see him, I hear, "Why don't you wake up and smell what you're shoveling?" He
was in Family Matters, where he played a cop as well.
Is that right?
Yeah. And Family Matters, for those who don't know, it was very, from what I know of it, so if fans of the show hear this and think, "You're getting it all wrong," very similar to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air type programme, centred around, you know, a very, much more working class black family. He was a cop. And I think, it ran for quite a few years, from 89 to 98. So
89 to 98, that's a very good run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, he's great in this.
He's great, yeah.
He's another bit of light humour in there.
He's got the I Shot a Kid storyline in this that whenever I hear him talk about it just makes me think of Hot Shots Part 2. And he's like, "Thank you, I can kill again." You know what I'm talking about?
I think the only thing, I mean, I get that, having that backstory, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I can't see it. I can't see him being the bad guy. Yeah. He's playing he's putting the onus on himself. You know, I think, not reading too much into the situation, but I think most people would find that understandable in that situation. Yeah. But, you know, he's just such a lovable character.
Yeah, but at the end of the film, he manages to kill someone else, and he's like, "I'm free from not wanting to kill people anymore." And
there is a really funny interview with Bonnie Bedelia where it's just after everything's gone down and John McClane and Holly Gennaro are embracing. It's all over, and then all of a sudden, John McClane and Sergeant Alan Powell lock eyes, and that becomes like the bromance love, and the Bonnie Bedelia was like, oh, I thought this was my moment, and it's actually theirs.
Anti-lock braking system. Brake master cylinder. Exhaust manifold. Ignition coil. These are just some of the things you can listen to here at Mechanical Moods. The only place to relax for the engineer's mind. Subscribe now to Mechanical Moods for the lonely gentleman.
And you could very easily see a buddy cop spin-off of John McClane and Owl Pal, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
like I say, they crowbar him into the second one, and it's a delight when he turns up. He's such a good actor. The character's really good as well.
It's the point in the cinema where he pops up and everybody goes, "Way!" You know, it's that kind of feeling, isn't it? We've got the great Paul Gleason playing Dwayne T. Robinson. He is the police captain. He's a guy from the Breakfast Club. Don't mess with the ball, you'll get the horns.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
oh, yeah, sorry, I'm with you. Yeah, he is great in this.
He plays that role to perfection.
Yeah.
He plays that role in pretty much everything I've seen him in.
I almost feel like he's wearing exactly the same suit in everything I've seen him in. The role is so similar.
I've got my work suit on. It goes for any character. He's fantastic. Obviously, we've got Alan Rickman playing Hans Gruber.
Oh, he's so good.
And
was it Rickman's first film, wasn't it?
First film to put in that kind of performance.
So good.
And he is an actor. He's not a bad guy. He's an actor. He was doing theatre.
His accent's not too bad either. There's a few moments where it's a little bit where are the stunts?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not bad. It slips every now and then, but I think his American accent is quite bad.
Yeah.
But then he's a German. He's an Englishman pretending to be a German doing an American accent. So you got to forgive him that. And, you know.
I think he just about gets away with it. He's
so good. As far as 80s villains go, he did set the bar quite high at that point, though, didn't he?
Yeah. It's iconic without being... It could be very easy to go in there and play... Essentially,
Hammy, you know what I mean?
Him in Robin Hood. It's very easy to go in and do that.
Oh, he's so good at that.
He's good,
well over the top, though, isn't it?
It's very. Yeah. I think a lot of villains at the time would have done that, and I think in this film, that's where it starts to venture into B movie.
How important do you think to the overall perception of this film is Alan Rickman? Like, because we talk about it being it's Bruce Willis's action movie, and all those things are true. I think it's the villain of the piece. The casting of Alan Rickman is what elevates this. Not solely, but if that casting's off, are we still talking about this movie 36 years later, you know?
Every protagonist is only as good as its villain.
Yeah.
If you've got a villain who's not interesting, you know, essentially you look at those Olympus Has Fallen films, those types of films where...
cardboard cutout villains and
you
stuff.
know, Gerard Butler's very he's charismatic in his own way, but he's got nothing to play off of.
How many villains have there been now, including in Die Hard sequels, where the villain is some sort of tech genius who's been wronged by the government, who's seeking revenge? I see that popping. Basically, Elon Musk with a grudge popping up everywhere, you know, including in, is it 4.0, I think,
Yeah.
That is it Timothy Olyphant playing the villain in that?
Yeah, Timothy Olyphant.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
And Timothy
he's
Olyphant,
good at it.
He's good in it.
I like
it's that element of, again, very, very shrewd casting. I know some people were a bit sceptical. Again, they've put a lot of, you know, considering it's a 28 million budget film, they've put a lot of
faith.
A lot of faith in their two main roles. I mean, you could argue, okay, well, if we're going to have Bruce Willis, then we need to have...
We need a name.
We need a name in that villainous role, or vice versa. Well, we're not going to have a villainous name, but we need to have, so...
Yeah, it's always fascinating to me when casting choices for a movie, obviously they had no idea how big this movie was going to be, and obviously even less so from the opening weekend. But like you say, that there isn't that drive to have a name in there, because that's what Hollywood do. We need a name. We want a name. Now, Bruce Willis wasn't unheard of, but he wasn't an action star. So you're like, well, who's a good go-to villain at this point? And there's this unknown bloke, English bloke from England. English bloke from England.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I think you used a few too many words.
Was
there.
he English right now? I thought he was German. No, this unknown theatre actor from England. Because we're going to pick him because he's the right person for the role. Like, where are the stars in this movie apart from Willis, who, like, again, he wasn't unheard of.
It was all afterwards. The real stardom came afterwards.
I know that stuff like that fascinates me because it infuriates me when you can tell that they've just crowbarred a star into a movie, bums on seats, laddie, and all that sort of stuff, And
I think, we're going through the cast, and I think one thing that's perhaps would be apparent to any listeners is that this, at every step of the way, this had all the credentials of being a massive failure. It's a sequel to a film starring Frank Sinatra, who's not going to be cast in this particular role because it's an action film. So you're not going to get the fans of that film coming along. We're going to put Bruce Willis, who's known for his comedic chops, on a TV show. TV acting is very different to movie acting.
Yeah, Bruce Willis, who is probably most famous as that bloke your mum secretly fancies from that TV programme.
Yeah.
He's your action star.
Yeah.
But that bloke who keeps releasing records of Under the Boardwalk. I mean, he's what I mean? He's not an action star.
This is going to sound really demeaning to Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
But he wasn't perhaps... Obviously, TV in America is slightly different to TV over here, but if we were to put it into an equivalent of his stardom at the time, you're probably looking at somebody like Shane Ritchie.
The American version, so it's not quite as tacky, but
it's that lovable rogue.
He's a middle-aged hunk.
Yeah,
from that romantic comedy with Sybil Shepherd in, it's an unlikely.
If we try and think of Die Hard with somebody like Shane Ritchie, if you heard about this film coming out in the next 2 years, do you know what? It's an action film, big budget action film, Shane Ritchie starring in it.
Do you know what the closest equivalent would probably be? Colin Farrell, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Who was in Ballykiss
Angel, yeah.
Just like fairly middling nothing TV program on ITV, I think, in the early noughties, and then went, I'm off to Hollywood now. It's like, boom.
Yeah, he's probably more equivalent than Shane Ritchie.
but I get your point, though. Yeah. It would have been quite jarring, I assume,
And in speaking of setting things up to fail, we've got Hans Gruber as the main villainous role, but every action film takes the James Bond approach usually, where you have the main villain and then you have what I call, if it was a game, it's the sub-boss.
Yeah.
It's the henchman.
head henchman. Yeah,
and the head henchman is played by Alexander Goodenough.
That's to do with the long blonde hair, yeah.
He plays Carl, the guy with long blonde hair, who is a ballerina.
Is he really?
He's a ballerina, and he was known for his work in ballet. And so you hear that and you go, well, how is that going to work? Surely that's not going to work. But it works.
Yeah.
Probably because you don't know he's a ballerina going in.
Yeah.
But
that's interesting.
It just sets everything about this film feels like it's got all the remnants of failure, and somehow out of the ether it pulls out this fantastic, cracking film
that transcends its the era it was made and possibly even the genre it was made in, depending on what you think it is.
Proper star in this, and even then I wouldn't say he was a proper star, but the closest to it is you've got Robert Davi in a cameo role playing Big Johnson as the FBI agent who comes in.
Right, yeah, he's bloke from stuff. He's bloke from 80s stuff.
He was in The Living Daylights. License to Kill.
Yeah.
Plays
He did a James Bond
plays
movie,
the main villain, and then Benicio del Toro is a sub-villain in that.
Cause he's like, it's just like back in Nam. I don't know. I wasn't born. Because he's bloke from stuff. He's in a lot of 80s stuff. That's right. Yeah.
So
it's funny because I was watching the sequel yesterday, Die Hard 2, and it's got a pre-famed Robert Patrick in, who is even more Terminator 2-esque than he is in Terminator 2. It's so weird. It's only a couple of years between it. It's like 1990 is the sequel.
I still think Die Hard 2's a perfectly passable sequel.
It's exactly how I would sum it up, yeah.
However, what I was saying about casting the wrong guy in the villainous role, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the dude who plays the main villain in Die Hard 2, who's got
Stuff,
bloke from Stuff, pretty sure he's in Bill and Ted's.
He is in Bill and Ted.
But he's painted all white in that.
Yeah.
He's a great character actor. He's in.
Sorry, I'm still smiling at the fact that I was like, he's in Bill and Ted. That's right. Yeah.
But he's not the main villain. He doesn't have that.
How do you feel about Jeremy Irons in the third though?
Jeremy Irons is just a sideways. He's like I feel like a lot of people get Alan Rickman, or American fans perhaps get Alan Rickman and Jeremy Irons mixed up.
Yeah,
because they're very similar.
Yeah, I could buy Jeremy Irons as the villain, apart from the fact that he spends it wearing his little grey vest throughout the entire movie. I find it so distracting.
It's like a vest off, isn't it?
It's like skin tight grey vest. He's like,
McClane's going to do it in a vest. Well, I'm going to do it in a vest as well.
Irons had done
There's a lot more homoerotic subtext.
I feel like Jeremy Irons had done like 10 push-ups and went, "Yep, got it."
Yeah,
bring on the vest.
I think that's the only thing for 2 for me that kind of lets it down, is you haven't got the same level of actor, because I think that's the importance of that role.
I love 2. 2's a bit bloated as a movie. It's a little bit. It's the pacing's slightly off, but it's a great sequel. You
could tell that they went, okay, we need to top it a little bit, So that's where it becomes a little bit more over the top in places. The jetpack scene, or jetpack, but the ejector seat scene. Where, it's a little bit kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the camera type thing.
But it's what I find fascinating about these movies, though. And again, this is that same old subject we come back to about action movies and special effects. The special effects they would have been visual effects, I suppose they would have been called back then. The peril or the danger that they're in is so, like, compared to modern times, would we consider it wouldn't be enough. Like in the sequel where he almost gets run over by the plane, the peril is he's got to move a grate off of him. There's no CGI or real visual effects needed at that point. But it's enough tension for the movie. He rolls out the way just in time, or when I think it's the third one. The one they blow up the building at the beginning of the third one, and it's just a building that explodes. You see a couple of cars turn over, and it's amazing to watch. The car chase in the third one through the park isn't overblown. He's not jumping over a million things, and as it would be now, because you can do that now. And yet somehow those special effects are enough when it's real, when it's in front of you. At most it's a model. When it's a tangible thing, it's enough. That the sense of excitement you get from that when they blow up a train, or when they do this, that, and the other, or when he swings in this film when he's got the hose around him and he goes that, it's enough. It's like an iconic moment in a movie that I saw them do on Mythbusters. I think it was the first episode of Mythbusters I ever saw. They were doing, it was different. It was like Mythbusters, but it had the dude, Robert Llewellyn from Crichton, from Red Dwarf, and he was doing a thing about movies. Can it be done in real life? And he was doing the Die Hard thing. Like, that's how iconic that is. That movie got made now, they'd be like, well, that's not exciting enough. Can he do that from a helicopter whilst punching people in the face? And they're like, it would be too much.
Everything's on fire.
Yeah, everything's on. Yeah, everything's big and dirt. But the simplicity of it, it wasn't simple to do at the time, but comparatively, it looks simple now. Adds to it. It grounds it in a sense of reality that modern movies have lost, because when you have the ability to do, as we always say on this, necessity is the mother of invention. when you have the ability, as they do now, to do anything your mind can think of, sometimes you need to just pare it back. It doesn't need to be such... I mean, these films were considered ludicrous when they came out, but you know, it doesn't need to be... By
today's standards, they're really, fairly...
It's subtle.
I mean, who'd have thought at the time you'd probably be saying in 40 years' time, people would be saying, oh, that's an element of realism there.
Yeah, so like you say, when he shoots at the plane in the ejector seat, that was like a big stunt. That was like a big moment of the film. And you're like, now it's like, what does he do? He just pulls an ejector seat, gets out. All right, can we have him do something else? You know, we just keep going and going.
Would you like to know where the idea for the fire hose off the top of the building came from?
I would love to. Yeah.
So it came from a Charlie Chaplin-esque 1920s, 1930s slapstick silent film. I can't remember the name of it, but essentially he jumps off the top of or out of a window with a fire hose.
Was it by Harold Lloyd by any chance?
Might have been. That sounds vaguely familiar. So
Harold Lloyd's famous for doing like stunts.
So I'm going to go with that. And it's very, very similar. He jumps out of a window with a fire hose attached to him. The actual metal thing that it reels around, reel, that gets caught on the edge of a window. Very much similar in this. So it's weird where you get your inspiration from.
Yeah, I think Harold Lloyd, if it was indeed him, was famous for he was the silent era Tom Cruise doing my own stunts kind of guy. You know, I mean, he invented a lot of visual trickery and stunts and things like that for movies. Like, obviously, weren't that many people before him, so he got to, but someone has to be first, didn't they, you know?
Well, should we get to that time in every one of our episodes where we start looking at some potential would-be castings?
I was literally going to talk about Bob Hoskins. We get to that point in every episode.
He's not on this list.
He's not in this list, and it's an 80s film.
I know.
He wasn't considered for the villain.
He was. His agent was on holiday at the time. So in the role of John McClane, we have the possibility of Richard Gere.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, not for me, but fair enough.
We have the possibility of Don Johnson of Miami Vice.
Yeah.
We have the possibility of Richard Dean Anderson, who is the main dude in Stargate, the TV show.
Oh, MacGyver.
MacGyver, that's it, yeah.
Yeah. He'd probably be all right. And I don't think we'd still be talking about it 36 years later, but I think he'd be all right in that, maybe.
Nick Nolte?
Nick Nolte. No.
I think Nick Nolte by this point was probably just getting a little bit too old.
I mean, what are you talking, 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy's around this time, isn't it?
That's early 80s, isn't it?
Oh, so is it another
81,
48
82
hours?
I want to see. And I think another...
where the sequel's got...
This is Cape Fear sort of time, I believe.
What, with De Niro?
That's 90s.
That's 90s, isn't it? I mean, he's probably down and out in Beverly Hills era, Nick Nolte, then, isn't it?
I don't think he's right for the part in general.
He's good in Down and Out in Beverly Hills. Have you ever seen it?
I feel like he'd be a much more...
a good movie.
I haven't seen it. But I feel like he'd be more grizzled in this and a bit more, this job, you know.
I like Nick Nolte. Yeah, I'm going to go watch that in Beverly Hills after this, actually. No, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, and this next name is kind of what I was getting at in the terms of the action star of the 80s, apart from Schwarzenegger and Stallone, who were the big ones. Mm-hmm. But you had guys like Tom Berenger, who was a big 80s action star.
I've forgotten all about him, yeah.
But he very, you know, in the 90s hit and you didn't hear of him.
Did disappear, didn't he? Yeah, he
not in big budget films.
Seemed to sink without a trace. Yeah.
He does crop up in Inception. He's pretty good in that.
Does he really?
Yeah. He plays the uncle of Cillian Murphy's character, Fisher.
Oh, wow, buddy. Yeah, better dues. I always think he's just he's the bloke from Platoon to me.
Bloke from Platoon.
Johnny Depp's
the substitute
movie and Charlie Sheen and that. Yeah.
Sniper. That
it's a different movie. It's a very different movie. I think it becomes. I'm not sure I've seen Tom Berenger do like comedy sides. I'm sure he has. I don't think I've seen it.
I don't think that those comedy elements would have come through there. I think they would have gone much more straight laced. Tried to mimic what Stallone and Schwarzenegger are doing. it would be much more like Commando, just in a tower block,
It feels much more brutal, yeah. So it'd be more like the Dread movie then.
Yes, yeah.
Actually, I imagine him doing it a lot like Carl Urban, to be fair. Do you know what I mean?
Charles Bronson, John McClane. Because that's what John McClane's mission is,
moustache. It's Movember.
Michael Madsen.
Michael Madsen? Really? I guess he would have been old enough. Yeah.
He's got the same...
It's because he's not really famous until, like...
Pulp Fiction, is he? Or Reservoir Dogs,
Reservoir Dogs, which is, 92?
92, yeah.
So it's not that far removed, actually. It's only 4 years. I think Michael Madsen, he's kind of... I don't want to say he's like Bruce Willis, but he's sort of cut from that... He's that brooding, tall, dark, handsome kind of action kind of dude.
I feel like...
Less so these days.
I feel like with Michael Madsen, and this is going to sound really disrespectful, and I don't, because he's a good actor, I feel like the best you see of Michael Madsen is in a still image. He's very much a, for lack of a better term, a poster boy, in the sense of you put him on a movie poster and it looks cool.
I'd love to see him do like some film noir stuff, man. Do you know what I mean? Like the 1950s detective, 1930s detective sort of thing. He's got that look. He should be smoking a cigarette and talking about dames. You know what I mean?
Very similar, if you were to make it today, to like Sin City.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Bruce Willis did a. He did
Bruce
a
Willis
take.
is in Sin City.
He is in Sin City, isn't he? He did a take on. Oh, my mind's gone blank. It's that samurai film that Clint Eastwood turned into a cowboy film. High Plains Drifter I can't remember what the samurai film is based on, but Bruce Willis did one Last Man Standing, where it's 1950s bootlegging, 1930s bootlegging kind of film.
Yes,
I think it was not well received. But those sort of films, that sort of film, like Two Jakes kind of movies that Jack Nicholson did. LA Confidential. I'd like to see Michael Madsen do one of those sort of movies, LA Confidential.
I'd like to see Michael Madsen do that as well.
What did I say?
Michael Madison. He sounds like an estate agent.
So Madison sounds like a make of baloney.
Okay. Do you want a very different film? Let's put Pacino as John McClane.
No way, man.
Just isn't going to work as well.
No.
Ho, now I got a machine gun.
That was pretty good.
Thank you very much.
Ho. Ooh-ah.
Obviously, we've got the names like Sylvester Stallone. We've got Harrison Ford. We've got Mel Gibson. We've got Clint Eastwood. We've got Burt Reynolds.
Hang on. Say that again. Harrison Ford could do it. Different film, but that would be anyway. But yeah, Harrison Ford could do it.
Mel Gibson could do it.
With his finger. Mel Gibson could obviously do it. It's
essentially, Die Hard 3 is a Lethal Weapon film that got made into Die Hard.
Yeah, that's right. They repurposed it, didn't they? Yeah.
So it fits, like it's a very easy transition to make. Clint Eastwood, very different film.
Late
grizzled.
80s,
he would be a grizzled veteran of a cop.
I don't know, because when did he do Deadpool? That's early 90s with Charlie Sheen, and I kind of felt like he was, no disrespect, but getting a bit old to play a tough guy cop at that point. No.
And then Burt Reynolds.
I mean, I love Burt Reynolds, I really do, but I like 70s, 80s era Burt Reynolds, late 80s, maybe he's still got it. Smokey and the Bandit era. I mean, it's just a comedy at that point, though, isn't it? It's more comedy than action.
So, only one other potential casting on this list for the role of Hans Gruber.
Okay.
And that name is Sam Neill.
Oh, right, yeah. I mean, I think he'd do a good job of it, I reckon, yeah.
I think what's important, as I say, what's important with Hans Gruber, and there was an interview with Alan Rickman where he said, he didn't play the villain. He plays a man who wants certain things and is willing to do certain things to get it.
Hans, baby.
And I think that line was ad-libbed by the actor.
Really?
And so there's a slightly quizzical look from Alan Rickman, and that's legit because he wasn't expecting it.
Threw him a touch there. Hans, baby.
So in the role of Holly Gennaro, we mentioned earlier, and a lot of these names we've kind of mentioned in the same breath. We've got Linda Hamilton.
Yeah.
We got Glenn Close.
I can't see it, but okay.
We got Gina Davis.
Of course. She could do anything.
We got Deborah Winger.
Yeah, she'd be all right.
This name, I feel there's not enough meat on the bone for Meryl Streep.
She'd be peeling an orange in every scene. Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer, we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, she could do it. It's not enough. I actually don't think it's enough for Michelle Pfeiffer to be getting on with, but she'd be good at it.
Goldie Hawn.
No, I can't see that, to be honest.
Sally Field.
No, I can't see that either.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Lee Curtis is a great actor. I don't think there's enough for her to do, though.
Yeah, if you're going to have a name,
I can't picture Jamie Lee Curtis and Bruce Willis as married either. I don't know why. I just can't see it.
I'm trying to, and
it's too jarring.
They're just two different jigsaw pieces, aren't they?
Because she plays Arnie's wife in True Lies.
Yeah,
I can buy that for some reason, but I just can't see. I feel like she'd be too tall.
Have you heard?
Is she tall?
I don't think so.
Is that me? Is that my chair squeaking or yours?
It's your chair.
Is it me?
I'm not moving, so it's your chair.
I do apologise.
Yeah, have you heard the story in True Lies about the sexy dance scene and Schwarzenegger with the tape recorder?
I know the scene, yeah.
Yeah. So they were filming that, and he drops a tape recorder when she starts getting a bit seductive. That wasn't meant to happen. That was Arnold Schwarzenegger watching Jamie Lee Curtis being like, whoa. Wasn't expecting that, and he drops, and apparently James Cameron's like, what are you doing? Don't drop it. You've ruined the shot. And then they ended up using it. So.
Is that right? James Cameron shouting at his actors. That doesn't sound like James Cameron.
Read into that what you will. Carrie Fisher.
Oh, right. Yeah. I could see that.
Kelly McGillis.
Yeah, I could see that, actually, yeah.
And Kirstie Alley.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kirstie Alley, again, she was an amazing comedian or comedic actor. I don't really remember seeing her in anything serious, so it's hard for me to see her playing it straight,
Yeah, it's very difficult when somebody's so known for comedic roles that, essentially it's Jim Carrey in the Number 23 or The Truman Show, isn't it? Where it's like, oh, he's not bouncing off the walls being crazy. So I feel like I've got a segment here which I feel like could be a recurring segment in later episodes.
I honestly think it could be a disaster, so I thought you were about to say. Tells you where my head's at, doesn't it?
So would you like to hear some foreign title translations of Die Hard?
Oh, only all day long.
So, let's have a look. Some of these are just quite good movie titles, and some of them are hilarious. So in Spain, the title was translated into Crystal Jungle. I don't think that's a too bad movie title.
How they got to Crystal Jungle, though.
It's very similar to like Urban Jungle, that rhetoric there.
Yeah. But they're in a built. Yeah, okay, well.
In French, it was
Le Petit. Le Petit. Le
it was going off the same sort of themes.
Le Morte.
Are you trying to offend every nationality?
Oh, that's my French accent.
Okay.
Le Morte.
So in French, it was going off the same sort of lines, and it was Piège de Cristal.
You're at it now. Yeah.
I'm just saying the words.
There's no crystals in this film. I'm finding this quite annoying.
Well, I'm guessing it's the look of the Nakatomi Plaza as it glistens in the sun, looks like a crystal in the pale moonlight, which is actually just foxes. It's a Fox building, isn't it? It's owned by 20th Century Fox.
Oh, right. Yeah. You look like that sentence looked like it was about to fall apart quite spectacularly then.
In Poland, it became the Glass Trap.
That actually makes sense, to be fair. Yeah.
So all of those titles, obviously,
The Glass Trap.
moving away from
Dying Hard.
Yeah. The Hungarian title is it's called Give Your Life Expensive is how it translates. And the title of the sequel is Your Life is Even More Expensive. Wow. And the third part is Life is Always Expensive.
That's amazing. Because I was sitting there wondering what they did for the sequels. Because obviously you get Die Hard, Die Harder, with a Vengeance, Good Day to Die Hard, and all that. You know. So they just stuck with the expensive theme. Yeah.
And then in Finnish, the movie is translated to Only Over My Dead Body. Which doesn't have the same kind of zip and wit to it, does it? It sounds a bit laboured.
Sounds like
and a bit
comedy. Yeah. Sounds like a comedy in a Death Becomes Her kind of vein, which also starred Bruce Willis.
So those are some foreign movie titles.
I quite like that.
And let's go on to some trivia now. So the perhaps, well, definitely the most iconic line in the film, but perhaps the most, or one of the most iconic lines in movie history. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yeah.
That line.
Dubbed to Kimosapi in the television version.
That is correct. Would you like to know where that came from?
I know where that came from.
Would you like to inform our viewers?
It was in the opening. It's from Roy Rogers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Roy Rogers.
Yeah. Roy Rogers TV show where he played a cowboy, I think. Or
50s cowboy. Was it a kid's show, wasn't it? Or family show?
I hear it mentioned a lot. It's definitely an American classic. I don't think it really took over.
And it almost came out a bit differently in its pronunciation, apparently. So John McTiernan thought the line should be Yippee-ki-yay.
Yippee-ki-yay.
I'm guessing if you say it quicker, Yippee-ki-yay, like that, if you say it a bit quicker. But obviously, you can only really say Yippee-ki-yay in that staggered kind of way. So Yippee-ki-yay. Bruce Willis argued that it should be Yippee-ki-yay, and apparently they tried both versions to see which sounded better, and the now famous Yippee-ki-yay won. And I suppose if it had been Yippee-ki-yay, we would be saying, Yippee-ki-yay sounds weird. Yeah. So it's that.
The thing I read, I forget what it was I read now, but it had something to do with McTiernan. Is that how you pronounce it?
John McTiernan. Yeah.
McTiernan.
Yeah.
Yeah, McTiernan and Bruce Willis both coming from like wherever it was, the Midwest or something like that. It was something they had in common, like Yippee-ki-yay. I think there's a song Yippee-ki-yay, Yippee-ki-yo or something like that. But yeah, from the Roy Rogers thing, the whole Roy Rogers was from their hometown or something like that. I read somewhere, and but that now I say it out loud sounds like it's probably not true. You know what I mean?
Would you like to know how much Bruce Willis was paid for this movie?
Oh, I would. So let me see. It was $28 million movie.
$28 million.
$28 million.
Mason Verger is back on the episode.
Say it with some authority. $2 million.
Double it and then some.
Oh, you got paid quite a chunk then.
He got paid $5 million.
Oh, right on.
And apparently, according to his agent, that was... I don't quite understand how this works, but apparently that was the agent's way of cementing Bruce Willis in this role. His words, not mine. Don't know what he means by that.
No.
But we said earlier...
Maybe Bruce Willis didn't want to do it, and they're like, I'm going to give you $5 million. I'll do it. My understanding is he's quite keen to become an action star, but I don't know.
Maybe.
$5 million, that's more than I thought he would have got. But then I suppose he was a star. He was a TV star.
It was the highest an actor had been paid for a movie role at that time, $5 million.
Interesting.
So very quickly on.
So was his agent saying this made it seem like he was legit Do you know what I mean? He got that money. That makes it seem legit.
Could have been, yeah. Obviously, I don't understand how that works from a movie producer perspective or a studio perspective of going, so sorry, your way of convincing us that he's legit is us paying him more money. But...
Dress for the job you want, not the one you've got, I suppose, you know.
That only really works from a personal point of view, though. It's not like I've dressed for the job I want, so therefore pay me more than you would pay them.
No,
but
I guess it's that sort of like I'm assuming it's that sort of thing where you're like, well, it must be right because he got all this money for it.
It's doubling down.
It's that sort of like, don't look over here kind of thing. You know,
yeah. I suppose from an audience perspective, they go, they paid him $5 million. He must be good in this. At the very least, I'm intrigued. Let's go and see it to see how it turned out. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work for the opening weekend of only 601,000, as we mentioned earlier. But
do you think though, if you've just been paid, you're a big TV star, you want to be a movie star, but you've just been paid $5 million and your movie tanks. Obviously, this didn't tank, but. As a human being, do you think you'd be like, I'm all right? Or do you think it would
got to be an element of like, I don't care how the movie does. I'm rolling
rich.
In the Benjamins.
I'm rich. I've got the number one TV show on CBS or something.
Because who was it? I think it was Russell Crowe. No, it wasn't Russell Crowe. It was somebody. I'm just trying to think. It was Russell Crowe in Gladiator. When he was being asked to do it, he said they offered him however much, and he said no, I don't want that much. Just promise me. I think it was like 0.5% of the take-ins at the box office, and they were like, okay then, fine, that's easy, tuppence, don't have to pay him that much. I think he got a standard fee. And then it turned out to be one of the biggest movies of the year and the royalties and everything. And he's now, from that one film alone, they're paying him so much.
I haven't watched Gladiator in so long. I remember it being such a good movie.
So I could understand from that perspective, if you're Bruce Willis, I could understand the studio
The thing is, you've then got to get your money out of the studio, which, as we know, they're notorious for just lying about how much money a movie's made. I mean, I think we've mentioned this before. Batman, 1989 Batman apparently has never made a profit. It's like, jog on.
I suppose it kind of depends on, like, they can lie about it, but if it's like so obvious that it's making money.
I mean, I think 1989 Batman is known for making a lot of money, but according to the balance sheet,
they can lie about it, but it's like.
But if you're trying to get your money out of the studio, you know what I mean?
But so I could understand that perspective from the studio doing that with Bruce Willis because he's not a proven commodity. But to put $5 million straight up and go, here's your money, here's what you're getting paid for this movie. And this is what I was saying earlier about... At
what point do you think you had discussions about his rubber feet? Jeez, look, I do, but
I reckon that was in the contract.
I suffer with really cold feet. I'm going to need some sort. He basically invented, those annoying shoes that you see people wear when they go running, their toes out.
Yeah.
There's no drop shoes or whatever they're called.
I have to query anybody who buys a pair of them. Query them.
I reckon invented by Bruce Willis. Invented by Bruce Willis.
Maybe he was offered $5,030,000 and they went, can you take the 30 off because I need a pair of rubber shoes to wear throughout the film.
Do you think they painted fake toe hair on rubber shoes?
It was to be fair, it's before the days of HD, so I think they got away with it. If they did put hairs on rubber feet, first of all, I would like to know who the guy who's responsible for that job.
I'm telling you, they would have made him as realistically as human. Do you think they took moulds of his feet? Do you think they were like, oh, you've got a bit of a yellow nail on that toe?
They've got there's just pictures up on a wall of Bruce Willis's feet, and they're going, right, okay, that needs a little bit more magenta in that just to bring out the skin tone.
I'm amazed it doesn't stand out more than it does in the movie. Like, it must be, it's just because you don't see his feet that often, I think.
The only points
it's like how he's got
snippets, aren't there?
Feet-shaped shoes on. Like, how does that not look more ridiculous? You know what I mean? Because he must have had some sort of cushioning, padding in there. Otherwise, that's what it's for, and it's to cushion his feet, right? Like, how Do they not look like hobbits' feet throughout the entire film? They're little painted on. Oh, he's got a bunion there. Just paint that on. A little bit of cracked skin around the heel. You know what I mean? Because someone would have had to make them. They would have had to make them as realistic as humanly possible, man.
Meanwhile, there's a special effects guy in Hollywood who goes around films and says, "Do you know I made Bruce Willis's feet in Die Hard? I'm the guy behind that."
Do you think someone still has those rubber feet somewhere?
Somebody's got to
in
have
a case.
Like that's,
what are they?
like,
Bruce Willis's rubber feet in a glass case. A little certificate of authenticity.
Tons of movie memorabilia. You've got Conan's sword. You've got Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. You've got a model of the Death Star, and you've got Bruce Willis's feet.
I reckon it's probably like with a collection of like. He's already got like Spock's ears.
He's just
Hobbit's
trying to
feet.
create a full human.
Yeah.
You know,
He's got Arnie's hand from like Arnie, the head from Poltergeist. You know what I mean? Just like
all I need to complete the set is the groin of Jeff Goldblum, and I'm set.
I've got Brundle's phallus. This is one of the genuine phalluses that Brundle puts in the cupboard.
We've got some weird Hollywood real life version of Dr. Frankenstein trying to create a full person out of movie memorabilia.
This is the phallus used by Mark Wahlberg in Boogie Nights. This is the third boob from Total Recall.
This is Lance Henriksen's hand from Aliens.
Bruce Willis. Still think Bruce Willis's feet would still look out of place even amongst all of that, though. Yeah, I want to know if they were modelled on Bruce Willis's feet. I'm gonna do a deep dive on those rubber feet and find out where they are.
So stay tuned, everyone. I think it's one of those things. Once you notice it, it sticks out like a sore foot, not like a sore thumb.
I mean, I'll be honest. When I was watching this the other day, I was proper trying to watch for his feet, and I only ever noticed it like at one other than the famous one you see, where you can actually see the top of the boot because it comes out from under his trousers. I only ever noticed it at one other point. I don't know. There's his rubber feet because they do look a bit big. You know what I mean?
But you know, it kind of goes back to that point.
Bruce Willis has tiny feet. Do you say he got away with it?
It's like John Wayne.
John Wayne had
he's
tiny
like
feet,
6'3" and he's got like size 4 feet.
That's right.
That's why he walks in such a peculiar way. Yeah.
I thought it was because
walks like a penguin.
I thought it was because he was drunk all the time. But yeah,
I mean,
he's got those
that
funny
might
little
have
feet,
a hand in it. I'm not going to lie.
Have we discussed this on the podcast before about the Mandalorian? Did we discuss this?
Don't think so.
So the dude in the suit of the Mandalorian is John Wayne's grandson. That's why he's got that walk. And apparently Jon Favreau, because he's a stuntman in real life, John Wayne's grandson, was working on a film with John Wayne's grandson, whose name I can't remember, so I can keep referring to him as Mando, with the dude who went on to play Mando. And he noticed he walked like John Wayne. No, he walks like his granddad. Just had it stored away in the back of his head. And then when he came to make Mandalorian, he said, I want that John Wayne walk. Oh, no, just the person. That's John Wayne's grandson in the Mando suit with that strange John Wayne walk that he does.
Didn't know that. Yeah. I love those little tidbits, those little tiny things.
I love the fact that we got to that from Bruce Willis's
feet. Well, moving on.
Oh, do we have to?
We spent one of the episodes speaking about Virgin Cola. We're going to spend a lot of time speaking about Bruce Willis's feet.
Arnie's ding dong.
Yeah. We're just working our way through the body parts. So, there's a couple of great little scenes and little ad-libs from Bruce Willis. So, the scene where Hans Gruber has Holly Gennaro and he's threatening her and John McClane walks in, hi honey. That was ad-libbed.
Nice.
And it's a great little touch because it kind of it brings us back down to the meaning of what's happening. You know, it's no longer just a guns, explosion, bang bang, shoot 'em up type film. Now it's just a man trying to protect his family type element to it, and I think it's a great little touch.
Yeah, it's a great little touch that they're on the verge of getting divorced as well.
Yeah,
Of the movie.
It's immediately
very 80s, but
it's immediately very real. And that, I said it earlier. Bruce Willis kind of said he's a real guy. That he's not a muscle bound idiot. He's a real life.
She's changed her surname back to Gennaro.
From McClane, yeah.
And like it's on her. He walks in, he sees it.
Which I've got to say is a bit of a dick move.
It's like a dick move, isn't it?
I tell you what, if I walked into an office, my wife's office, and I saw she had her maiden name, I mean, she does have her maiden name at work because she's worked there before we got married. But if she deliberately changed it back, I'd be like, that's grounds for
it's a move, isn't it? She's making a move by that.
And I think that's probably why you said earlier they had a bit more of a step into the comedic side from her character in the second one, because you could do the same thing again. Okay, they don't interact with each other, but there's only so many times you can probably see that before it's like, well, why are you still together then if you have this much problem?
Do that in the third, don't they, where he's like, what happened between you and your wife? He's like, I never rang her back or something like that, and he's like, go ring your wife, and it becomes a whole thing. And it's literally, it's like we can get one more joke, one more thread out of this storyline, about him not getting on with his wife. And then the later movies, they have divorced.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's because the actress didn't want to keep making the same movie. I don't know.
There might be an element of that.
But again, you can only flog that horse so much, can't you? You know what I mean? In the second movie, they're definitely getting on a lot better, aren't they?
So would you like to know who almost directed this film?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Paul Verhoeven.
Oh wow! I think he would do a great job. Again, I see Dredd.
Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop. Yeah. I get Paul Verhoeven and David Cronenberg mixed up.
Oh really?
And I don't know why, because they're very different filmmakers.
No, I see his version of this as much more violent.
Yeah,
and it's quite a violent film. What I really like is like we kind of talked about it earlier with the TV. Movies where they dub, it used to be a staple when I was growing up, TV dubs and edits of movies when they were on TV, where they take a lot of the violence out, or they take the swearing out, Muddy Funster and all of those sort of things. And it was part of, funny enough, my favourite one I ever remember seeing on TV was the TV edit of RoboCop. Instead of, it could be a completely expletive laden but yeah, it's one of the best ones I've ever seen, where it's like, I got enough firepower to blow enough of this stuff up your gaping nose. It was just like, hey, heck you, man.
They're not even trying to conceal that it wasn't filmed at the same time.
It was full on.
It's just somebody going, gaping
stuff. Up your gaping nose.
It's a bit like those phone lines you ring where it says, is this your number? 073.
Yeah, totally. And it was brilliant. And Die Hard had a lot of that, like Yippee-ki-yay, Chemo Sappy is the edit, and a lot of the violence cut out of the TV versions, which is what I would have spent a long time seeing, would have been the versions were on TV that I would have recorded onto VHS tape and then watched again and again. And interestingly enough, I bought a VHS copy of Die Hard with a Vengeance that had the elevator scene cut out of it. So he gets in the elevator with four people pretending to be cops. You see him realise that they're not cops, and you see him pull his gun, and then it cuts to a different scene, and then when it cuts back, he's just getting out of the elevator covered in blood and there's dead bodies in the elevator. No idea why. It must have just been like one of those, and that was on a VHS copy, and it didn't say edited or anything. I did get it from like Wilco's or something like that. It was one of those equivalents like Poundland or something, man. You know what I mean? But yeah, those sort of TV edits, like I do miss the ridiculousness of those TV edits. And Die Hard is one of those movies that got edited a lot. And it's always interesting when you see it, you see the full extent of the violence in the unedited versions. Quite impressive.
One of perhaps the most significant edits with Die Hard, not from a made-for-TV perspective, but just from an editing point of view. So in the scene where Hans Gruber finally meets John McClane, and there's that little tense scene, and then all of a sudden Hans Gruber feigns being an American, there's like an unusual, I don't know if it was in your copy, but it's definitely in my copy, there's an unusual kind of like focus on the watch of Hans Gruber.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
for years a lot of people were like, what's all that about? Because that's the kind of thing that makes John McClane go, what's that? It's because there's a couple of scenes that have been cut out throughout the movie. So I think when they first get out, there's a scene that's cut out where they all have the same watch and they all sync their their watches together. So they're all on the same time. And then there's another scene, and I think it's the ho, 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 now I've got a machine gun. Just before that, he notices the watch of the goon is wearing. And so that's his kind of...
That's his way into realising who he is.
And so it looks a little bit out of place because I remember thinking it, maybe not again, because I can't remember the first time I watched it, as I said earlier, but I remember thinking it at one point and I was saying, well, because they never just focus on things in movies unless it means something.
That's
it's
right.
always
They're
like,
telling you something.
Why are they focusing so long on that dripping tap? Because that tap's going to drip and everyone's going to get electrocuted or something like that,
Well, yeah, everything is some sort of exposition. And like in the beginning of 3, when it's like, you're still playing the lottery? Yeah, my badge number 6919 6919 619. And you're like, I wonder if this is going to come in handy later. You know what I mean? It's like you say, that nothing is there by accident in a movie, is it? Yeah.
And to be fair, I actually think if they'd have kept that in there, I think the tension of that scene goes completely, because I think the tension of that scene...
McClane
McClane's on the level and he's worked out, whereas the beauty of that scene
in the gun.
is you think, he's been conned, like Hans Gruber's conned John McClane.
And he's just handed him a gun.
And then he's like, oops. And it's just such a smug line, and it's so like, that's right, that's my John McClane. That is.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, if the audience knows that he knows, there's no tension there, is there?
Yeah,
you're right.
It's just,
that's probably why they cut it. Yeah, such a good scene, though.
Just going back to the Yippee-ki-yay motherfucker line, because it's so iconic. We spoke a little bit about this with the "I'll be back" line from Terminator, in the sense of it becomes sort of more than the line. It becomes bigger than what actually happens, and it's so like throwaway. He just backs through a door while saying it, and it's almost just like, let's just fill some time. We need to see you backing through the door so we know where you're going. Just say something. It feels so throwaway, and yet it's just stuck because it's... It's interesting
because it's in the second one is when they really yippee-ki-yay.
It's like right a big, like everything, yippee-ki-yay,
just as he likes that, Does he do it in any of the other movies? Do they drop it after the second movie?
I'm pretty sure he does it in 4.
I don't remember him doing it in 3. I could be wrong.
I think if you'd done it in 3,
really great,
you'd have to have it Samuel L. Jackson say it. You'd have to, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't make sense for that character unless... Oh, you're that dude that I heard about who used that funny line in that news story I read 4 years. It'd be shoehorned for the sake of it.
I kind of want to hear Samuel L. Jackson say that line now, though. I can hear it in my head, you know what I mean? Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
There's got to be an edit of that somewhere. It's like, fan edit or something.
It's like that famous Snakes on the Plane line, isn't it? Yeah. That was fan service on it. Someone said, I want to hear him say, I've had it enough with these MF, and so on.
And speaking of TV edits, that was changed to mother flipping.
Is it really?
Yeah, I've had it with these mother flipping snakes on this mother flipping town. I think it's weird how we attach such gravitas and such kind of gravitas to lines when actually, if you see them in the context of how they are, it's not as big as what's come after it in the sense of
it's that they don't know
the
where
pop culture references.
It's funny the stuff that gets picked up, isn't it? Yeah.
So, what would you say is your favourite scene?
Do I have a favourite scene this week? It's I want to say it's Alan Rickman getting thrown out the building, just because of how they filmed that scene is phenomenal. They didn't tell him, did they? They did like 3 or 4 takes.
That's kind of
3 or 4 takes. Is that right? Because the version I was, they did 3 or 4 takes.
I think that's
and then the last take, they went 3, 2, and then just let it go.
I think that's the generally accepted thing. But he was asked about it in an interview, and he says, I don't know where that came from. I can't really remember how it happened. But he does say a great line. He says, when they were talking about it, somebody was saying something about CGI, and he was like, I can just do it. And they realised, rather than paying for CGI, we let the actor fall. So he contests that, but you know that's been the kind of the narrative for quite a while, and
it's a great. However, they got that reaction in his face.
It's fantastic,
superb.
Isn't it? It's just, I mean, in terms of pop culture, you're right there.
That was my Alan Rickman.
Okay.
McClane, Potter.
You're only good in small snippets. I could
do McClane. That's about it. Yeah.
Got such a distinctive voice, isn't it?
Such a great actor, man.
I mean, that
sorry, favourite scene. What is my favourite scene in the first? So I've watched the original trilogy now, and they're all mixed up in my head. So from the first movie, it's Hans, baby. It's definitely that scene. I literally cannot wait for that scene every time that movie comes on. Every time I'm like, every time I see him doing coke in the office, I'm like, I remember what's coming. Hans, baby, let's do a deal. John. It's so good. I think that's my favourite scene. It's just like an unlikely scene, but I think that is my favourite scene. Like, I love the hose pipe over the top where you see his rubber feet as well. I love the end. It's definitely the coked up 80s yuppie dude scene. That's my favourite. Yours?
Mine, I'd probably say it's one of two. It's probably any scene where he's crawling through the vent.
Oh, that is classic, actually, isn't it?
Have a few laughs, make it,
Oh, yeah, he talks to himself a lot in this movie.
Come on, John, think, goddammit, think.
Yeah. Oh, that is good. Come to LA, we'll have a few drinks, we'll have a few laughs. That is quality, man.
And that wisecracking has kind of become
synonymous.
You've got so many films that have wisecracking. Talk to yourself.
The last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans. Is it Wayans or Wayne? I always say Waynes, but
I think it's Wayans. But
he literally says it's not enough to just hit someone anymore. You got to hit them with a surfboard and say "Surf's up." And all this. I'm like, that's brilliant, man. Which I think is Last Boy Scout. I think it's an unfairly maligned film. Actually, I think that's a Shane Black movie as well.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it's a great movie. I didn't watch it for years because everyone panned it. And then when I finally watched it, I was like, this movie's actually really good. But it's self-referential. That's the problem with it. You know what I mean? So I think Shane Black write Last Action Hero as well? Which is also self-referential. Because apparently they ruined that movie. I know John
McTiernan directed.
Apparently they didn't tear his script up, but they took a lot of it out. It was supposed to be like an ultra-violent, self-referential movie, and what came out wasn't quite what he'd written, I'm sure.
Last Action Hero is self-referential as well.
Yeah, but I think they took out a lot of stuff that kind of made it feel a little flat.
That was panned as well.
Yeah.
That was the movie where Schwarzenegger basically...
That was his first flop.
Yeah, he was like, he felt...
he fell into depression, didn't he? Yeah. But came back with... the Cameron one, True Lies.
True Lies, yeah. I think Last Action Hero, I just love the line in Last Action Hero where he's like, to be or not to be, not to be. It's just fun. It's just brilliant.
It's a good line, isn't it? Because I mean, you got that sort of one-liner stuff. John Wayne was doing it as well. I think it's Predator. Yeah, it's Predator where Arnie blows the door up and says knock knock.
It's in all the Bond films, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's just direct.
Were.
The knock knock line is taken from a John Wayne film, and he either boots the door open or shoots it open, walks, he goes knock knock. That's such a good line, you know what I mean? And Arnie, stick around. Knock knock. Stick around.
But yeah,
don't wake my friend. He's dead tired. Bennett, let off some steam.
Consider that a divorce.
That's Total Recall, isn't it? Oh, yeah, that's such a good movie.
I think my favourite scene is probably the scene where Hans Gruber and John McClane first meet.
It's a great
scene. Such high stakes in that scene. Tension's palpable. As I said, I like the vent scenes. What I like is there's kind of the little tiny tidbit scenes, like when he gets off the plane, and there's that again. That's been edited because I think there's a couple of lines of dialogue between them, but that little line of like you can see the air stewardess giving him the eye, and he's just not interested, because I think very quickly that tells you the kind of man he is.
Happens in the second one as well. She's like, I get off in a half hour. Do you wanna? He's like, no. No, I don't. I just need to send a fax.
I just think those things are quite, considering, how many movies would you see where the man's going through trouble? It's very easy to, in the throes of passion or whatever it is, to be the womanizer and, James Bond-esque type thing.
Yeah.
I think very quickly it tells you, okay, he's a family man.
Well, that's the thing. This movie doesn't have that, like you say, it doesn't have that. Here's the dolly bird sort of thing. Here's the sex scene. Here's the.
It doesn't have a romantic.
His wife is
element.
realistically his wife, and she's a good-looking lady.
They see each other.
She's not like some 20-year-old. Yeah. With her boobs hanging out or whatever. Which you would expect in these sort of movies. Previously and after this, you would see that like there would be a romantic lead opposite him who's half his age. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Which is sort of a staple in Hollywood, isn't it?
And they even mirror that scene as well, where it's
with the cop at the end. No, sorry. You hang in there, buddy. That's it. When they're talking to each other. He's up there and he's hurting, man.
Trying to think of the guy's name, the hand baby guy.
I can't remember the character's name. He's so good.
He basically does the same thing to Holly Gennaro, and she's like, really, like, can you leave my office, please? That kind of thing. And I think there's
also that great touch Artie's was snorting that coke when Bruce Willis looks at him and just points at his nose, doesn't he? Like, it's a lovely little touch.
I think I really like those. Obviously, those big action set pieces and those big scenes. Yeah. But I really like those little small elements and the ways of the way of showing character rather than telling. Because it would be very easy to say, "Hey, come on, we've not been too great recently. We've been going through some problems." And you do it all in the space of a couple of lines. But to show, I still love you. You could say those lines, but it doesn't really mean anything. But to show it, you go, okay, well. Essentially, two people have offered themselves on a plate to both John McClane and Holly McClane, but they both go, see you later, not interested, despite all the problems. It's a very quick way of showing their character.
Holly, baby.
Yeah. You've got a real soft spot for him, haven't you?
He's so repugnant. Yeah. I do love a good repugnant character. Like you got the news reporter in this as well.
Yeah, he's great.
He's up there with.
Did you get that? Tell me you got that. Yeah, again, another ad-lib line from him. He's great.
He's up there with is it Peck from Ghostbusters? This man has no dick. You know that dude.
It's the same dude, isn't it?
It's not the same actor, is it?
Yeah.
Is it the same actor?
He's the dude. The reporter in Die Hard is in Ghostbusters. He's just got a beard, and
well, he reminds me of him, so that'd be why then. Yeah. Is it really? How do I not know this? I'm literally gonna have to fill the air.
But I think perhaps because of my background and looking at lots of scripts and working from a performing point of view, I've always liked little small ways of showing character rather than saying it.
Show me, don't tell me.
Yeah, it's an age-old thing, if you're going to write something, you show, you don't tell. But a lot of people don't really know what that means. And now your mind has been blown.
I must have forgotten this. Because I'll be honest with you, I was watching the sequel yesterday, going, God, he reminds me of the bloke from Ghostbusters. They're basically the same character. They're both odious. And then I literally went, apparently that dude from Ghostbusters is a really nice bloke, and he had quite a hard time after Ghostbusters came out. Everywhere he went, people were just like, you're a dick. Do you know what I mean? And he was like, oh, this is horrible. And that was as far as my mind went.
Is that a direct quote?
This sucks. He was like, this sucks. No. Blimey, it's the same bloke. Yeah, couldn't picture him in my head. That's hilarious. Yeah, he's right up there with his own character in that other film. But I do like a good odious character in a movie.
It's quite evident. When we spoke about The Fly, you pretty much, your love for, I can't remember his...
Stannis Baratheon. I can't remember his actual name.
Stannis Baran. That's it.
Yeah.
Stannis Baran. You fell in love with his character. And
I thought he was horrible, but
But you liked that about him. It's brilliant.
What I like about that character is he's clearly horrible, and yet somehow they make him the hero kind of at the end, you know what I mean? There's something about a good repugnant. It must be fun as an actor to play someone repugnant, you know?
I feel like if we ever do Wall Street, you're going to lose your shit.
Michael Gecko. Different kind of repugnant, but yeah. It's fun to, I loved you in Wall Street. That's Hot Shots as well, isn't it?
So how about some further watching?
Further watching all of the Die Hards, obviously, especially the first three, all of the Lethal Weapons. As we say, the third Die Hard is just a Lethal Weapon script that was repurposed, and it shows how, because the movies Die Hard and Lethal Weapons are very different movies, and Die Hard 3 is a very different movie from Die Hard 1 and 2, yet they're somehow interchangeable. That 80s action, like, it lends itself to it so well. I would watch the Dredd movie, which is essentially the same thing. And is it the Raid that they actually based the Dredd movie on?
Yeah, the Raid.
Yeah, I'd watch that. I would watch Last Boy Scout for sure. Let me have a quick look, see what else I've written down. But yeah, what about you?
I think if you want Bruce Willis or slightly newer Bruce Willis, and it be good, because now that we know Bruce Willis and his difficulties with dyspraxia, it's more than understandable as to perhaps why his later films aren't quite at the same level as his earlier work. But a great film from, I think, 2016 is Looper.
Oh yeah,
it's a sci-fi film, but it's, he's got all the elements of Bruce Willis that you want in a Bruce Willis film.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Oh, looking at my notes, my under favourite scene, I also had Air Vent written down. So there you go. Apart from that, I've also got Trading Places written down for a good Christmas movie, adult-style Christmas movie. Trading Places, completely different movie, but adult Christmas-themed movie with a lot of laughs in it and some problematic scenes. But it was filmed in the 80s, though.
Whenever we watch an 80s. And that's the one thing you don't really find in Die Hard. There isn't really a problematic scene other than a little bit of workplace sexual harassment when Holly Gennaro just goes to her office and gets chatted up by Haynes, baby, Yeah,
you're right. There's not overly problematic. You get to the third one and they play on that sort of that scenario, don't they, between Zeus and McClane, But yeah, you're right. That's interesting. It is timeless of its time, and yet somehow still timeless, man. Yeah,
this movie could be released next week, and it would fit. It doesn't, another John McTiernan film, Joel Silver film, Commando. That is so 80s that it must be painful to actually.
I mean, even the villain Bennett in Commando is the most 80s villain you've ever seen. It's like chainmail on and stuff. He's straight out of Mad Max or something, isn't he?
I think he probably auditioned for the wrong film. I think he thought he was going for Mad Max 4.
Bennett let off some steam.
Yeah, great line.
This knife's a part of me. I want to make it a part. Is that more confusing? That
No, that
is the line, isn't it? Yeah, because he does it in Running Man as well. This chainsaw's part of me. I want to make it part of you. No thanks, you can keep it. It is buzzsaw. He had to split. Do you know we've done more Arnie impressions in this
than we did in the Terminator? No, we spent too much time speaking about his wang. But yeah, I think in terms of further viewing, I mean, we've mentioned them and I don't think they're quite as good, but they're similar in tone in the sense of it's one central-ish location and one man against, the Olympus Has Fallen or that series of films. It's very similar. Doesn't necessarily have a great villain, but they're very, very similar. One film that kind of flips it, where it's a Gerard Butler film, and I think it has some of the same. It's a much grittier and dark version, but I think you can find some of the same stakes in this. Is Law Abiding Citizen.
Oh, yeah. Is that the one when he's in prison?
Yeah, Gerard Butler plays against type and plays the
I feel like I went through a phase of watching a lot of Gerard Butler movies, like, not even really on purpose. I think, like, I guess, like, you know, in Amazon or whatever it is you're streaming on just keeps recommending the same film.
You watch this, so you must like this.
So I went through a bunch of them, so I saw Law Abiding Citizen, it was all right.
I think you can probably get away with any Bruce Willis film, sort of pre 2005, really. You know, I think. I mean, Die Hard 4 is a very different film. It's
4.0, right?
Yeah. I
quite like that movie.
I think
right up to the point he surfs the jumbo jet, or whatever it is, the fighter pilot jet plane thing. But then he does in 3. He surfs on the top of a digger or something, doesn't he, on a big dump truck?
He just likes surfing on vehicles.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. No, they play on it. They have a fight on the wing of a plane.
I think
that bit in Die Hard 2 when that dude gets sucked through the engine on the plane wing. Oh, stuff of nightmares, that, isn't it? Also, would have broken the engine.
Yeah.
There's no we can still take off after that.
Yeah.
It's over, you know. But hey, you don't need realism, do you? Yeah, anything, Bruce Willis, anything like that 90s era Bruce Willis or whatever. I mean, you get to the end of the 90s with Bruce Willis and you get to like The Sixth Sense, those sort of movies that he was doing. I love The Sixth Sense. I haven't seen that in a long time either. So yeah, and then that sort of the action era Bruce Willis. I think Hudson Hawk I've seen it.
It's much maligned, isn't it?
Much maligned. I think that was the beginning of the turning for him, where he sort of moved away from action movies for a while, and went more back into the comedy sort of roles for a bit, guest appearances on Friends, and then he found a sort of second life.
He's great in Friends.
He's so good.
He's like,
yeah. He sort of found a second life with it, like. I'm just a sex machine. He starts crying and he can't stop.
Chicken boy.
She wants him to be more in touch with his emotions, and then changes her mind. Like, stop crying, mate. Amazing. But yeah, I can't remember. He found a second sort of life after Sixth Sense, where he sort of got, into. I didn't say he got into horror movies. We have that sort of another period of his career. When's 12 Monkeys? 12 Monkeys is probably mid-90s. Yeah. So you get 12 Monkeys is just after Pulp Fiction, which again is similar. The role he plays in Pulp Fiction is a similar role, but it's very different from his action hero. He's playing essentially the same character he plays. That sort of quiet, doesn't talk much. He's a man of action, but it's a very different scenario. It's a very grounded. I was going to say realistic. Hopefully that's not a realistic scenario to find yourself in. Dear God. You know what I mean? But yeah.
If you ever walk into a room and Ving Rhames is holding a shotgun with a ball gag in his mouth, that's
I'm going to get medieval on his ass.
Good evening and welcome to Inside the Actor's Mind, the show that delves deep into the psyche to find out what makes a great character, a great performance, and what makes a great actor. I am Julius Oxbridge Teeth III. Join me as we go deep into the actor's mind. I'm Julius Oxbridge Teeth III. Won't you join me next week as we go deep into the actor's mind?
So So that was Bury Our Bones With for this week. We hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed putting it together for you. Please don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us in all the usual social media places as Bury Our Bones With. So please do come by and say hi and send us your comments. Until next time, I've been Jimmy Murphy, he's been Ryan Etherington, and this has been Bury Our Bones With Die Hard.
Speaking about the Yippee-ki-yay to make Die Hard
Is that right? Yeah. I know, like, to make it Mallrats 2 was going to be Mallrats Die Hard, but yeah, he wrote the script.
He doesn't have a lot of luck with writing scripts.
He couldn't get Universal to release it. Universal said, we don't want to make it, we'll release the film. No, that's our property.
Yeah, Peter Kay, he's in an interview with Jonathan Ross, and he's like, yeah, I want to remake Die Hard. Well, it is a comedy, but he's like, yeah, welcome to the party, pal. You know.
I need a snack.
No worries. I was thinking when you said earlier, is sitting on a...
Hello and welcome to Hello. Hello and Mr. Ryan Etherington. We've
got a new host for today.
And the worst thing is, in my head, I started going, no, this is going well. And it's like, no, just concentrate, mate. You don't get TV edits anymore, do you? Such a shame. Right.
Streaming's ruining the world.